Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We're here today to honor the memory, the legacy of an incredible hero, Raoul Wallenberg, with this amazing memorial, and just by being here. But let me ask you this. Do you recall the first time you heard the name Wallenberg? I was a little kid growing up in Budapest, Hungary, and on warm summer afternoons, I wanted to ride my bicycle. So I would pester my mom. And she would relent and say, sure, I'll take you, but you can only ride your bicycle one street over on Wallenberg Street. In those days, there were not too many cars in Budapest yet. There were some on our street, but none on Wallenberg Street. Just a whole bunch of kids riding their bicycles with great abandonment. As a little kid, I didn't yet know the horrors of the Holocaust or the legacy of Wallenberg. To me, Wallenberg just meant a street name. I didn't yet know how deeply he had touched their lives. My parents were from a town called Munkacs, about 350 kilometers east of Budapest. My father was a physician and a dentist, and in May of 1944, he was deported to Auschwitz with his mother, wife, and 13-year-old daughter, and also his brothers. The women were immediately killed in Auschwitz, including my 13-year-old sister, and only my father returned. Indeed, he wrote a very moving book about his experiences through 12 months in 5 different concentration camps. My mother was also deported to Auschwitz. Indeed, she spent her 20th birthday on a transport to the concentration camp. Her father and her brother also interned. Sadly, my grandfather did not return, but my mother and her brother George did. George actually became the Dean of Engineering at Moa College later on here in Hamilton. The only person who was not deported to a concentration camp was my grandmother, Grandma Valley, my mom's mom. Her brother lived in Budapest, and he was ailing. So she went to visit him in early 1944. When in March of 1944, the Germans invaded Budapest and occupied Hungary, she was forced into hiding. The Hungarian Nazis, the so-called Arrow Cross, had a very nasty habit of catching Jews in Budapest, marching them to the edge of the Danube, and after relieving them of their valuables and shoes, shooting them into the river. Indeed, if you go to Budapest today, you'll see a row of bronze shoes affixed to the embankment in front of the Parliament building in memory of these victims. But one day, my grandmother's luck ran out. As I was told, she was out looking for food, and she got caught up in the dragnet. And later, she was being marched towards the Danube to a fate we can't even think of, with maybe 20, 25 other people. And then suddenly, 2 young German officers appeared and started yelling at the Hungarian guards, who were clearly intimidated. The 2 Germans took 2 women out of the group. Now, why 2 and why these 2, I'll never know. But one of them was my grandmother. These 2 German officers weren't Germans at all. They were Jews, part of the Hungarian underground. They took my grandmother directly to Raoul Wallenberg, the special envoy of the Swedish embassy. Now, as you know, Wallenberg, with his associates, set up safe houses in Budapest, declared them to be part of the Swedish territory. And he also issued safe passage papers, passports, called Schutzpasses. Holders of these papers had some level of protection. Now, why the Germans or the Hungarians even accepted the idea of safe houses and safety passports is a direct result of Wallenberg's genius, ingenuity, resourcefulness, and tenacity. So he gave one of these Schutzpasses to my grandmother, and he wished her good luck. I'm not sure if in German or Hungarian, but my grandmother spent the rest of the war hiding in one of these Swedish safe houses. Later on, in the 1960s, she emigrated to Canada to be with her son. You know the rest of the story. When the Russians liberated Budapest, they arrested Wallenberg, never to be seen again. Among the tens of thousands of Jews Wallenberg had saved, there was one young man who lived around the corner from us. His name was Tom Lantos, or Lantos Tamás in Hungarian. Years later, he became a U.S. congressman for California. And as you know, in 1981, he sponsored a bill to make Wallenberg an honorary U.S. citizen. That way the Americans could question the Russians directly about his fate. In 1985, Wallenberg became an honorary citizen of Canada. And he's also an honorary citizen of Australia, Great Britain, Hungary, and Israel. My mother was so incredibly grateful to Wallenberg for saving her mother and the tens of thousands of Jews that every night, for the rest of her long life, she said a prayer for him. And as I said earlier, we're all here today to honor the memory and the legacy of an incredible hero, Raoul Wallenberg, with this wonderful memorial, and just by being here. And for that, I thank you so much. Toda rabá.